On Tech News Today, we've got details on Google's new Pixel C Android tablet, the Chromecast products, and the new Nexus smartphones. Plus, Elon Musk rolls out the fastest, safest SUV ever, and the only one to feature a biodefense mode. And a new Tivo DVR lets you skip all the commercials with a single button. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, September 30th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Wealthfront. Wealthfront is a low-cost automated investment service that's the most sophisticated way for you to invest your money. Whether you've got millions or just starting out, visit wealthfront.com/TNT to sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. That's wealthfront.com/TNT. And by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 100-plus job sites, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. My name is Mike Elgan, and our co-anchor today is ZDNet contributing writer Kevin Tofel. Hey, Kevin, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. I'm a lot better than last week. I'm sorry I missed the show, but you carried on without me, and everything looked good.
Well, I'm glad you pulled through. I, for one, am glad you pulled through. And I'm really, really excited about today's show because we got all these googly products. And I was at the event yesterday. It was an awesome event. And I just really like what they're doing across the board. Sometimes a company will have an announcement like this, and you're kind of like, yeah, you know, I wish you had done X, Y, Z, but I'm really excited about what they announced yesterday. So why don't we jump right into that news? Google yesterday unveiled a wide range of new products, including 2 new Nexus smartphones, a new Android tablet, 2 Chromecast branded products, and an updated version of their Photos app. Joining us is our panel of experts, Roger Cheng, executive editor at CNET News, Janko Roettgers, who is a senior Silicon Valley correspondent for Variety, and Stephen Hall, a writer for 9 to 5 Google. Welcome to you all.
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you. Now, so, Roger, let's start with you. The Nexus 6P smartphone, the object of desire in my case, personally. Can you tell us what we learned yesterday about this awesome new phone?
Well, we didn't really learn that much news since most of it was leaked out already. But, you know, what we have is the new flagship device for Google, right? This is the Nexus 6P. It's got a full metallic body, much better camera, fingerprint sensor. It basically is the showcase for the latest and greatest with Android.
So, Roger, the new phone was, as you said, it was leaked. All the information came out. Even the pricing, which was very, what I thought, aggressive, $379 and $499 for the 2 models, for the base models. And when I heard that leak, I thought, you know, this could really shake up the market in terms of flagship phone pricing. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, it's interesting you say that. I think we've seen this trend, and it's not Google that started. Over the last couple of months, we've seen sort of lower-priced flagship phones, right? The Moto X Pure style, you know, phones from Huawei, from ZTE, the Axon. These are devices that are, you know, they all have a lot in common. They're lower priced. They feature decent or high specs, and they're going after consumers directly, right? They're not trying to go after they're not trying to use a carrier channel, the standard way of selling smartphones, right? They're trying to sell these things directly to consumers, going after savvy customers who want to save a little bit of money. And that's sort of the trend you're starting to see. I mean, this still represents a really small part of the market, but I can see this growing as a lot more affordable and attractive phones go out this way.
Now, Roger, you know, the casual consumer of news about smartphones might be forgiven for being confused about what the options really are in the smartphone market, especially in the Android market. I mean, here's another rectangle. It costs a few $100. It's got a camera that they say is really great. It's, you know, this, that, and the other thing. What is it about this phone that is unique or rare in the industry, if we can just focus in on those differences?
I mean, the biggest selling point for the Nexus phones is this is the direct line to Google and the Android experience, right? It's the only place you can get a pure Android experience and the fastest updates for the latest and greatest with Android. And now, that may not be a huge selling point for mainstream consumers. I think mostly Android enthusiasts will be interested in that. But the fact that they they touted the camera. It was the first big point that they went deeply into. That the fact that they were driving the camera as the main selling point, tells me that they want to make this more of a mainstream product, right? They're obviously selling this first to Android enthusiasts, but they're hoping those enthusiasts become ambassadors and offer these phones up, or at least recommend these phones to people who may not care about the latest and greatest from Android.
Stephen, I know you covered these phones as well, and were you surprised at all that these had Project Fi compatibility? Because up to now, Project Fi with that tri-network service from Google where you pay for what you use was limited to the Nexus 6, although I got it working on my Moto X Pure Edition as well. Do you think Project Fi is really going to help sell these phones? Because I know they're even selling these phones with an installment plan if you go with Project Fi.
I actually think that this is going to be kind of the opposite situation. I think these phones, by the way, I just joined Project Fi last month, and I've been using it on my Nexus 6, but I think these phones are actually going to, Google's trying to sell Project Fi with these phones because they're not offering them directly through the carriers, and they are offering them, as you said, directly through Project Fi. And so, I mean, I think that these phones are definitely Google's move to push this cellular service into the more mainstream, even though it's still definitely in the testing phases.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and go to you, Janko. Now, Google also unveiled 2 Chromecast branded products, including a 2.0, I guess, version of the Chromecast product itself. What's new with Chromecast?
Yeah, I have one of the second generation Chromecasts right
Nice.
here. They gave out some review units yesterday. This one is basically an update to the previous version. It works the same way. You kind of start media playback on your phone or on your computer, on your browser, and then you cast it to the TV. It plugs in. They changed the form factor a little bit. It used to be kind of this dongle, this stick that you would put right into an HDMI port. Now it has a little bit of a cord to it, and the cord clips to the body, as you said previously, and the thing is round. That's the different optics. They also changed a little bit the insides. It now has 802.11 AC Wi-Fi on both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So that should help to make connectivity a lot better for people who had problems with that previously, or just folks who have a bigger house and maybe don't have the router right next to their TV. There's also some improvements to playback with this device. They added this fast play capability, which kind of pre-caches content. So when you use Chromecast, you usually have like a splash page of your app. So let's say you start the Netflix app on your phone, then you press that cast button, and then you want to eventually start a show. The Netflix logo comes up, and there's always like a couple of seconds delay for things to launch. And then when you start your show, it's another couple of seconds for buffering and so forth. And now, as soon as you start the app on your phone, the Chromecast senses that you may now, then as the next step, launch it on the TV, so it pre-caches that in the background. You still have the same Chromecast home screen, but in the background already starts the Netflix app. And in the future, I think they're going to update that in the next couple of weeks. It's also actually going to start pre-caching some of these shows that you watch. So if you watch the same show, if you're binge-watching House of Cards right now or something, it's going to already pre-cache that episode while you're browsing and trying to find it on your phone. So the whole playback experience should be a lot snappier. And then in addition to that, they also introduced the Chromecast audio, which is a whole separate device. It looks kind of like this. I have mine plugged in, so I can't shut off right now, or my review unit rather. And instead of having an HDMI port, it just has an audio port. So you plug it into a Bluetooth speaker, for example, a powered speaker, or straight into your home stereo, and then you can cast to that stereo in much the same way from any app that supports audio playback. So Pandora has it. They're now going to have Spotify support as well. You can use Rdio, Rhapsody. Most of the big music services now have cast support. So then you use the app on your phone again, and whenever you want to play back something on that speaker, you just press that cast button, and it pipes the music straight to the speaker.
Janko, first of all, it's always good to see a former GigaOM colleague. So welcome. Yeah, we used to work together every day in podcasts and all. So I actually do want to do a follow-up on the Chromecast audio with you specifically, because I'd like to know how much Google is paying you for Chromecast audio. And the reason I say that is in February 2014, Janko, you created your wireless speakers using the old Chromecast and a $10 adapter. So did they steal your idea? And is this thing worth $35 or what?
It wasn't, to be be fair, it wasn't really my idea either. I found that on Reddit at the time, and some people had experimenting with it because with the original Chromecast that has an HDMI port, you couldn't easily connect it to a stereo system. So some people figured out that there's adapters for HDMI to VGA or anything else that also feature a separate audio output. And I bought one of those as well. I got it shipped straight from Hong Kong and plugged it in and built my own Chromecast audio, if you will, like 15 months ago or something like that. I don't know if Google took the idea from me or from anybody else, or they have a lot of smart people working there as well, so they might have come up with that on their own. I don't get any royalties for this, but I do have to say I like the idea obviously a lot. And they're actually going to take it a little bit further, not at launch, but in the coming months, they're actually also going to launch multi-home or multi-room audio. So you can buy multiples of those and you plug them into a speaker in the living room, a speaker in the bedroom or whatnot, and then you can pipe the same music synchronized to all the speakers at the same time, which is pretty cool. Kind of a Sonos type of approach, I guess.
Now, Stephen, it has to be said that you personally wrote a series of articles coming up on the Chromecast and Chromecast audio announcements with pretty much all the details. So congratulations on those exclusives. That was really awesome. We knew all about this by the time this came out, thanks to your reporting. Now, a quick question about the Chromecast audio. I'm not really clear exactly how it works. There's a fundamental difference between sort of broadcasting audio to multiple speakers, and then there's another approach where you essentially synchronize players that are attached to each speaker, and they play in synchronized. Is it the former or is it the latter? Are they synchronizing or are they just broadcasting to all the speakers? Do we know?
We don't really know at this point. I mean, as he said, multi-room is not going to roll out for a few weeks, and I don't think we're really going to know. I don't think Google has detailed yet exactly how that's going to work. But I think it's most likely going to be that situation where, like, as you know, Chromecast devices, they all connect to Wi-Fi. So they're actually pulling streams straight from the internet. They're not connecting to your phone directly per se, like Bluetooth would. So I think these Chromecast audio devices are all individually going to be pulling down streams at the same time from your Wi-Fi connection in your home. That would be my guess, at least.
So Google also, they've updated the apps for Chromecast and for the audio and the video. Stephen, what did you see there that might be interesting?
Yeah, so there's a few things. There's a new What's On section, which here you can kind of see Google starting to make some moves on Apple and what they introduced with the new Apple TV. There's a new What's On section that lets you look through content that is available from through all the Chromecast-enabled apps that you have installed. There's a new Devices tab that gives you better control over the Chromecasts that you have connected in your home. And then there's a Get Apps tab that is like a better curation of Chromecast-enabled apps that you haven't installed yet that Google thinks that you might want. And then finally, with the new app, there's also, and this is kind of definitely an Apple TV-esque feature, is there's a search bar along the top of the app now that you can search through movies and shows, even if you don't have like any content apps at all installed. You can search for Breaking Bad or whatever the case may be, and it'll show you through the apps that Google has partnered with which like content providers you might be able to find that content through. So you might be able to find it through Google Play or through Netflix, or it could even it'll even suggest like different YouTube videos as well. And then that also works through your voice. And then finally, and this is something that I've been playing with on my current generation Chromecast, is that Google is introducing new capabilities for the backdrop, which is that static screen that shows on your TV whenever you're not using the Chromecast. You can now show Facebook images from your Facebook albums. You can now show Flickr photos from your Flickr albums. And they're also added support for 500 pixels and one other one that I can't remember right now. So yeah, there's a lot to see here, and a lot of it is actually compatible with your current gen Chromecast. So I definitely recommend you go and download that latest app from the Play Store.
Now, shifting gears to the last product, the Pixel C, which I think personally was the most high-impact announcement. I was at the event, got to play with it. Roger, you cover the Android market extensively, and you've seen a lot of tablets come and go. What did you think of the Pixel C?
I thought it was an impressive looking product. The Snap-on keyboard. The specs were all great. I'm a little skeptical about how well this will do. I think this is more of a showcase product. It seemed like with this, they're going after the iPad Pro and the Surface Pro 3, both workhorses, work-centric devices. Android has had a pretty spotty record when it comes to getting on the enterprise side of things. So I'm a little, skeptical about whether or not people will actually use this for work. And it seems like that's what this is intended for, right? A larger tablet, the keyboard, it's definitely built for you to create content as opposed to consume it. So I don't know. It's impressive looking. I think it's a cool looking product. I thought the Snap-on keyboard case and the way it angled was great. But I'm just skeptical as to whether people actually want it.
I tend to agree with you, Roger. I think it's a showcase product, just like the Chromebook Pixel is. And, wackos like me have bought 2 Chromebook Pixels, and me, I'll probably buy a Pixel C. But will the mainstream audience do it? I don't know. And I think that has a lot to do with the apps, the productivity apps on the Android side. Janko, you and I have talked for 2 or 3 years on a podcast about Chrome, and I'm curious if you think the Pixel C would be any different if it was either a dual boot with Android and Chrome OS or just Chrome OS by itself.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, as you said, they're targeting a small audience. It's kind of a showcase. So if you do a showcase, then you obviously want to inspire others to follow in your footsteps and develop maybe similar products, maybe products that are a little cheaper. And that was what the original Pixel kind of did. It set off a wave of Chromebooks that were a little bit more taking the whole medium a little bit more serious. So if they were to build this for Chrome OS, then they would obviously want to have many more other companies build Chrome OS tablets, which is interesting, but maybe Chrome OS isn't quite ready for that. So I see I think it makes a little bit more sense to still make this an Android tablet, but I like your idea of dual boot. And as these things are growing together a little bit, at least with Android apps coming to Chrome, maybe eventually that's going to happen in some fashion, but maybe it's not going to be the traditional, I have to choose one or the other as I fire up my device.
I have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, go. I was just going to ask you, in addition to your thoughts, can you also tell us a little bit about some of the more unique features of this, the magnetic attachment, the wireless charging, and so on? Go for it, Stephen.
Yeah, so first of all, I just think that this is kind of a bad idea, just to put it bluntly. And the reason I say that is, I mean, they're obviously going for the tablet market, and the tablet market is dying, first of all. And we see this move in the industry toward these kind of tablet-esque productive devices, like the iPad Pro and the Surface Pros and all those. But in reality, what this Pixel C is, it's a Nexus 9 with like a Logitech Bluetooth keyboard. And this is like, and this is something that I was reading on in an op-ed and that someone wrote on some of their site. But like, it's really like Android is not really prepared, at least in comparison to iOS, to be a productive OS. I mean, you look at the iPad Pro and even the regular iPad, which now have like the split screen, like multitasking and all these other productive features that Apple has built over the years. And then all of a sudden, like we have Google, who they barely have a tablet it's pretty well accepted that the iPad is definitely better than most Android tablets on the market, especially the Nexus tablets. And Google just has not built Android Marshmallow out to be a productive workhorse OS for the tablets yet. So I think it's kind of a bad idea that they went with Android. I mean, I would be much, much more compelled to buy this tablet, honestly, for me, if it was a Chrome OS tablet. And Chrome OS doesn't exactly have it's not the most powerful OS, but I think it would be much better in this case. And then, I mean, on Pixel C, there's a lot of things going on here that are kind of unique. We have the paired keyboard accessory. There's a couple different options. There's an aluminum one and a leather one. It like charges magnetically through the device. And then we have USB Type-C, which is obviously like Google is trying to pioneer what they think could be a good future for the Android tablet kind of space. But I just think that especially at these price points, like 32 gigs for $500 and 64 gigs for $600 and this keyboard that's $150, all of that combined with an OS that I think, honestly, even just using a tablet, just a regular Nexus 9, I really don't like Android on tablets. I love Android on my Nexus 6. I really just don't like Android on tablets in comparison to smartphones. And I think that this is just a big mess. And I don't think it's going to sell well, even though Google may not have intentions on this being a blockbuster hit. They may just want to be modeling, like a lot of you have mentioned. But I just think it's a mess.
Well, thank you for that perspective. I do think that the tablet on the desktop with the keyboard, with the physical keyboard, is going to be a thing over the next 2 or 3 years. I think the iPad Pro will sort of launch it, and to the extent that Android, as you say, is not ready for prime time, Jason's a big fan of tablets and Android and says, you know, what about all those apps? What about the familiarity people have with Android? And so we'll throw that in there. But I think that regardless of whether Google is ready, I think that Apple is definitely ready. Microsoft is trying to be ready, and Google is probably ready with the Chromebook, Chrome OS platform, and possibly for many people with Android. I think it's going to be a thing, and I think the tablets will get bigger and bigger on the desktop as people become more familiar with that form factor. But we'll see how that goes. All right. Well, I want to thank our panel. Roger Cheng is at cnet.com and on Twitter at Roger W Cheng, C-H-E-N-G. Thank you for joining us, Roger.
Thanks for having me.
So glad you were here. Now, I also want to thank Janko Roettgers at Variety.com, who's at JANK0. Thank you for coming on the show today, Janko.
It was my pleasure.
Pleasure was all mine. And Stephen Hall, 9to5google.com, and on Twitter at @StephenHall_. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Got some more news coming right up. But first, I want to talk about Wealthfront. I mean, you work really hard for your money, and it is your money, and you want to keep as much of it as you can. You want to invest it. You want to grow it. You don't want to waste it, squander it, or waste it on fees and things like that. And that's why you want to use Wealthfront. Traditional advisors charge huge fees, and oftentimes their advice isn't all that great anyway, but they charge between 1% and 3% of what you got under management, plus they make a bundle from you on hidden fees for transactions and any kind of changes you want to make. Wealthfront, on the other hand, makes it super easy for anyone to access world-class long-term investment management, and you can get started investing today with just $500. You just go to sign up for an account at wealthfront.com, and in just a few minutes, it goes right to work. It starts monitoring your portfolio around the clock, and it'll start taking action as soon as an opportunity arises. And whether you're investing for retirement or for a different long-term goal, Wealthfront automatically rebalances your portfolio and reinvests your dividends, all commission-free. All commission-free. It is such a great way to go, and it's the modern and affordable way. And again, why waste a bunch of money trying to hang on to your money? It makes no sense when Wealthfront will do it for you so much better. Just visit wealthfront.com/TNT to sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. You'll see the customized allocation they recommend for your profile. And just for Twit viewers and listeners, if you sign up to invest, Wealthfront will manage your first $15,000 entirely free of charge. Wait for it, for life. Claim your offer today at wealthfront.com/TNT. For compliance purposes, I have to tell you that Wealthfront, Inc. is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are offered through Wealthfront Brokerage Corporation, member FINRA, and SIPC. This is not a solicitation to buy or sell securities. Investing in securities involves risks, and there is a possibility of losing money. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Please visit wealthfront.com to read their full disclosure. The creator of an iPhone app called Speed Camera Alert, which tells drivers when they're approaching speed cameras in and around Washington, D.C. and displays the speed limit on the phones, has had his app rejected by Apple. Faiz Siddiqui is a reporter for The Washington Post and joins us now. Welcome to the show, Faiz.
Thanks, Mike.
Now, why did Apple reject this app?
So what Apple said was that it didn't comply with App Store guidelines, and the specific one they cited was that it didn't necessarily comply with all of the laws in the jurisdictions where the app might be used. What was interesting about it, though, is that in D.C., where the app is focused and where it alerts drivers who are approaching speed cameras, the app is completely legal. All of the information is published by the D.C. police.
So Fez, it sounds like the programmer, his name I think is Charles Ye. I mean, what is his? He basically, I'm assuming he thinks Apple is just dead wrong here. Has he said anything, or is he speaking out about this?
Yeah, Charles actually. Yeah, his name's Charles Ye. He's a software developer out of Great Falls, Virginia. What he's done about it is that he has started a petition on change.org. It doesn't have very much support right now, but he's hoping that the more people are aware of his cause, the more people sign up for the petition, obviously, or sign the petition, obviously. But yeah, he sort of thinks he's being bullied by Apple, that basically this tech monolith is telling him, because he's not some sort of big corporation or a big time developer, that he can't do this. And his main concern is that there are other apps that provide the exact same service. For example, Google's Waze app. What I think Apple would say, I guess Apple didn't say anything for the story on the record. What Apple might say, I guess, is that Waze isn't necessarily focused on speed cameras. It's all community input. So a driver approaching a speed camera could say, oh, I see a speed camera here, and report that, and it would show up for other drivers. Mr. Ye's app is intended to alert people approaching speed cameras.
Well, I personally like the idea of this kind of app. I am bothered oftentimes when technology is used to change the balance of power between authorities and the public. And that's how speed cameras work. It's super cheap and super easy for people to be automatically ticketed. And so, sorry, public, technology is really going to screw you over. So you should drive around constantly in fear of being automatically ticketed. Whereas this is an example, this app could have theoretically been an example of technology being used to somewhat balance the power and give a little bit more flexibility and power back to the public. And as he says, it doesn't sound like there's anything illegal going on here. It doesn't sound like it's encouraging illegal. It's encouraging you to slow down when you know there's a camera coming up, and there's nothing illegal about slowing down to the speed limit. That's the legal part, actually. And I'm sure that they could argue that it encourages speeding because you think, oh, I won't get caught because I'll be notified when there's a camera. And there's something like 300, as you pointed out in your piece, something like 300 speed cameras in and around the Washington, D.C. area, which sounds to me like a whole lot. Also, if Apple's going to make the case that Waze is okay because it's not focused, and I think that's a good guess on your part, that would be their argument for why Waze is okay and why this app is not okay, then all he would have to do is throw in a bunch of social junk in there and continue as usual, because, of course, I think, personally, I've noticed that most of the people that I know who use Waze use it primarily to watch out for cops.
Yeah, and what's different about this app from, say, a radar detector, for example, or a cop radar? Cop radars are banned in DC and Virginia, or they're not allowed. This app isn't detecting speed cameras. It's merely telling you when you're in an area where the DC police have said there is a speed camera. So it's not really actively detecting anything. It's just sort of your GPS is trained on you, and it tells you you're in the area, you're in this bubble where the speed camera is. So all the information is published by DC police, and Mr. Ye sort of feels like this is an injustice.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly the place I was going here. I mean, if he has that information, I'm sure it's publicly available. He simply put it into an app on where the locations are for these speed cameras. So I really am at a loss here as to why Apple would actually stop this. And interestingly, I mean, going back to something you said earlier, I mean, this could be big developer versus small developer. Apple may not push back against Google for Waze, but one little developer out of West Virginia makes it a lot easier for Apple.
Yeah, and let me, if I could I read you exactly what Apple said when they rejected the app?
Please do.
They said your app contains content or facilitates, enables, and encourages an activity that is not legal in all of the locations where the app is available. Specifically, the primary purpose of your app is to identify speed trap locations. So, I mean, there may be jurisdictions where this sort of behavior is not allowed, or being alerted to speed cameras is not allowed. I know there are countries where it's not allowed. But again, this app was completely restricted to DC. The only database that it used was the DC police database.
Yeah, and it, if I were their lawyer, I think that I would jump the chance to argue in court that this is, in fact, a safety feature, because if you were to look at the publicly available information on a web page, that would be far more distracting for you as a driver, and thus creating a safety hazard than this app that pops it up and just notifies you without a lot of losing of attention. At least that's how I would argue it. But then again, all of my legal information comes from the TV show The Good Wife, so what do I know? But this is all part of a larger trend, Faiz, in Apple sort of I think, possibly abusing its authority to reject apps. For example, there's another story in the news, which you didn't write about. You specialize in Washington, D.C. News, but there's another one that's international where there's an app called Metadata Plus, which notifies people each time people have been killed by U.S. drone strikes. And it was pulled by Apple because Apple said that it contains content that's going to be objectionable to lots and lots of people. That essentially was their point. It seems to me that this is part of what you would consider an informed public. You know, these are our tax dollars paying for these drones, paying for these programs, our military. And one of the problems with drone attacks, one of the signature problems with drone attacks, is that they are very bloodless. Like, you can blow away all kinds of people and nobody really seems to care. It's not like boots on the ground, which everybody freaks out about. And so I think this is an example of technology being used to inform the public about something that they really should be more mindful about. And they're banning it because it might upset some people. You know, reality sometimes is upsetting, and I think an informed democracy requires people to know upsetting things, because otherwise, how do you take action against those things, or how do you support those things, whatever your position is? And so I think this is quite a deal. Now, can you tell our audience before we let you go, Faiz, where people, if they do want to sign this petition for the Traffic Cam app, where they can go to do that?
Yeah, so it's I believe it has 11 signatures right now. He's looking for at least 100 at this point. It's on change.org. You can find the link in our story, and that's on WashingtonPost.com. Yeah, and it's a change.org petition. Actually, it's showing 12 supporters now, so maybe someone already has. But yeah, that's the best place to go, and you can find the link in the story.
Well, once this show hits the downloads, I'm sure that will go way, way up. Faiz Siddiqui is at WashingtonPost.com and on Twitter at Faiz Says. That's spelled F-A-I-Z-S-A-Y-S. Faiz Says on Twitter. Faiz, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Mike.
Tesla Motors CEO Elon Musk last night unveiled the company's Model X sport utility vehicle at its Fremont, California factory. The new all-electric SUV seats 7, has rear Falcon Wing doors that open even next to another car, and which use a new sonar technology that goes through metal to avoid touching a low ceiling in a garage. Musk claimed the Model X to be the fastest and the safest SUV ever. It goes from 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds flat, and scoring roughly twice as high on safety tests than the second safest SUV, again, according to Elon Musk. He also emphasized sophisticated air filtering, including a biodefense mode button, which turns the entire car into a kind of gas mask for its occupants. The price of the Model X is expected to be roughly $75,000 to as high as $144,000 for a fully loaded signature version. Kevin, how badly do you want this car? I mean, I just need it. What did you think about this announcement?
Well, I mean, this is perfect for when The Walking Dead becomes reality, you know,
Absolutely.
and you need that biodefense mode button and all that.
Exactly.
I love what Musk is doing. He's really pushing the envelope, maybe in ways that we think are head scratchers at times. But I mean, I don't know that I need I want a safe SUV, but I don't need it to go to 0 to 60 in 3.2. But, you know, that kind of speed is inherent with any electric vehicle because of the instant torque. So I don't really have a problem with it. The bigger issue for most people is going to be the price. I mean, if you're talking about up to $144,000 for this, you're certainly not going to see these all over the roads, I wouldn't think, no matter how much they tout the leasing and the attractiveness of not paying for gas and so on. I think they're going to have a much bigger hit with their less expensive upcoming vehicle. But it's interesting. I definitely give them credit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it had all kinds of little goodies, like, for example, when you walk up to the door, like any sort of other car, it recognizes that you're there and you can unlock it very easily. But in this case, the Tesla will actually open the driver door and close it when you get in. You don't have to touch the door at all, even as you walk up to a locked car. Very cool. They had a easy to attach sort of bicycle rack on the back. They demonstrated the car by hauling in this heavy sort of Airstream trailer, and then 7 people got out, and then they unloaded a ton of luggage, and very theatrically they unloaded all the luggage from the back, and then they went around to the front where in a conventional car the engine is, and opened that up and pulled a bunch of luggage out of there too, because of course the motors are low, which by the way adds to safety, and much smaller than a gas-powered motor or engine. And you know, just it was a great presentation as usual for Elon Musk. They gave a, you know, they had the first low VIN number cars, had the owners walk up and drive off with their new cars. But yeah, I thought it was a great announcement. And once again, I think that Tesla was the first to have a real sports car on the market that was all electric. Now it's the first to have an all electric SUV, and again, this is a trailblazing car. I was particularly interested in all the safety claims that he made, some of which were just purely great engineering, if all that is to be believed, and some of it is just inherent safety with electric vehicles. He made the point that a lot of injury and crashes, especially head-on crashes, are the result of the engine block coming into the passenger compartment, which doesn't happen with an electric vehicle like a Tesla, and also the fact that he had mind-blowing rollover numbers, and he points out that all the weight in an electric car like this is very low in the car, unlike a regular SUV where it's much, much higher, and so rollover is very difficult or very unlikely. So I was impressed by all the claims, particularly because claims like this for Tesla cars in the past have actually been proved in third-party objective testing.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm saying he is definitely pushing this market forward. Other car makers, traditional car manufacturers, they have to take notice of Tesla, even if they're vastly outselling Tesla here. There are so many design features and unique qualities to these cars that really, at some point in the near future, you would hope would be in all cars. I mean, I don't want to say every car costs $140,000. Obviously, it takes time to filter these technologies and safety factors in. But clearly, the car manufacturers, I think, have been put on notice from a design and innovation perspective.
Oh, absolutely. Well, anyway, once again, I will reiterate, I need one. So that's all I can say.
Just one?
At least, maybe a fleet. Well, TiVo today unveiled a new DVR called Bolt. Its signature features a single button that skips all the commercials in a block for recorded shows. Another quick mode button speeds up the action during the boring bits. It also supports 4K content and HDMI. Bolt starts at $300, which includes 1 year of TiVo service and 500 gigabytes of storage. Early reviews are saying that everything is faster. The UI is faster, the video launching is faster, and it also supports Wi-Fi for zapping your shows to tablets and phones in the house. This looks pretty cool, Kevin Tofel, but is it too crowded of a market? I mean, for example, this is pretty cool, but you know, all the other competitors in the field have fancy features like voice control.
Well, you know, this is almost, to me, TiVo coming back from the dead to a degree. And I do see a lot of features here that I like personally and that aren't really accessible, say, to traditional cable or satellite subscribers. I mean, every TV in our house, if we want to watch TV, has to have a box, and I can't zap things from my DVR over Wi-Fi to a phone or a tablet. So here in my home office, I don't have a cable box. I do a lot of Netflix and so on and so forth. If I could, though, I could, you know, with this, I could actually zap a recorded show to my iPad or something else here in the home office and not tie up a cable box. So, you know, that right off the bat is appealing to me personally.
Yeah, me too. Well, we told you back in April that the Los Angeles Unified School District demanded a refund on the $1.3 billion they spent to provide 650,000 students with Apple iPads. Those iPads came with educational software created by a company called Pearson, which the district says didn't work very well. Now the district has reached a settlement and will get $6.4 million, basically a rounding error on the original investment, some $4.2 million of which is coming from Apple itself. Kevin Tofel, this was one of the biggest debacles. There are many, many aspects of this. The whole purchasing process was so messed up that the FBI even got involved at some point investigating, you know, wrongdoing of various types. And it was just a terrible and bad sort of PR problem for Apple that one of the country's largest school districts bought iPads for everybody, and it didn't work out.
Well, it's interesting that Apple, I think, is very embarrassed by this, even though it's not about the money. The 4.2 million is nothing in the grand scheme of things for Apple. But the fact of the matter is, very little of this issue actually has to do with Apple. It's not that the iPads, the 40,000 iPads that the school district bought are an issue. The hardware is working fine. They paid $768 per iPad. That included a $200 charge for the Pearson software, and that is the problem. It's the Pearson software. But because Apple is the one who negotiated the contract with the district and subcontracted the software to Pearson, Apple has to look like the bad guy here for whatever that's worth. And as you said, the FBI investigation is going on in the entire bidding process for the $1.3 billion project. It's still ongoing because there's questions about was the proper bid process followed. So this is just a PR nightmare for Apple, in my opinion.
We'll see if the district, LA School District, gets iPad Pros. Oh, wow, let's do it again. Well, speaking of Apple, Apple's free 3-month trial period for Apple Music ends today. So if you signed up for Apple Music on day 1, it's time to make a decision. Either cancel the service or pay $9.99 a month. I think a lot of people are going to get burned. They probably forgot they signed up, and they're going to find out that they, in fact, signed up when they get their first bill.
I suspect they are, and I must have signed up on day 0 because I woke up this morning to a $15 charge. Apple dinged me right away first thing this morning, which is fine. I'm actually keeping the family plan that we have for the 4 of us in the house. But a lot of people are going to, even if they didn't want it, pay at least $9.99 for this first month until they go and turn the auto renewal subscription bid off.
Yeah, and I wonder if Apple will refund for the people who, who freak out immediately, and you don't think they will. You're shaking your head now.
Oh, I don't. That's going to go into their Tesla SUV fund.
Yeah, exactly. They can buy a fleet with that. Well, Twitter is reportedly working on a new product that would allow users to post using more than 140 characters. This news is being falsely reported as Twitter increasing the 140-character limit on Twitter itself, but in fact, the Recode story behind this talks about a product separate from Twitter. I sort of imagine a product like Medium that's owned by Twitter, branded as Twitter, but is a separate site for long-form posts. But the same story does talk about Twitter possibly expanding tweets a little bit by not counting links and usernames against a 140-character maximum. I think they're sort of pushing their luck here, Kevin, because I think that the signature feature of Twitter is simplicity and brevity. And to the extent that they make it complex and make things longer, if you have to slog through, a lot of reading, it's not going to be Twitter anymore. So I think they have to tread carefully here.
I agree. Twitter, don't mess with Twitter is all I can say. I understand that when Twitter first started back in, I guess it was 05 or 06, the world was different then. I mean, there was a lot of texting going on, not a lot of data usage in apps and so on. And that's partly where that 140-character limit came from, so you could use it via SMS and so on. I understand we don't have that limit these days, but it's actually a feature that people like. Not everybody, obviously, but I'd rather see them leave Twitter alone, and if you want to go with long form, have a separate product entirely.
It's one of it brings to mind the sort of catch-22 that social networks are in. On the one hand, people like to bloviate and post a lot of junk and talk a lot, and they want everybody who follows them to get everything they say. On the other hand, nobody wants to receive what the result would be if, in fact, everybody did that. So the way Facebook handles it is with algorithms. So they make you think that everybody's getting your posts, but in fact, they only deliver it to 10, 12%, roughly, I'm guessing, of the people who actually follow you. And this is a particular problem for brands. People follow a brand because they want to get what the brand is talking about, and then they only send that to a minority, and then like, but you can send it to everybody if you pay us. So that's how they handle it. Twitter handles it essentially through this 140-character limit. You can follow a whole bunch of people on Twitter because it's really inconsequential. You just get these things flying by, and if you miss, if you're gone for 12 hours, it's okay that you missed a bunch of stuff. You really want what's happening right now. That's, I think, why a lot of people follow, use Twitter. And so I think they've got a good solution for that problem. It's certainly one that thrills journalists. We journalists love Twitter, and we love the sort of the social networks that allow sort of unlimited bloviating. We don't like those at all because we're burning our brains every day on content, reading enormous amounts of things, writing enormous. And the last thing we want is to just get mired in these heavy conversations. We just want Twitter to go by, and we want to just have a quick snarky comment and then move on with our lives. So very popular with Twitter. I just hope they don't wreck it. We'll see how it goes. I think someone within Twitter has got to understand why people like Twitter, why the people who like Twitter. So, and hopefully they'll retain it. Well, we got some more news coming right up, but first let's talk about ZipRecruiter. The most important decision you'll ever make is who you hire. If you've got a small business or you have a department or you need to hire an assistant or somebody to work with, you got to hire the best person. If you hire mediocre people, you're going to have a mediocre product, you're going to have a mediocre company, and you'll probably fail because you have to be really good these days to succeed with your company or with your department. And so the best people are going to help you. Problem is, the best people are scattered all over the internet. And so ZipRecruiter is going to help you there by allowing you to post to 100+ job sites with a single click. So powerful. And if that's not enough, they have a 6 million resume database that you can just search. It's your own private Google of qualified candidates. You can find people. You can go hunting for the person who's just right for your company. Now, of course, one of the problems with casting such a wide net, with having access to so many candidates, is you're going to get, in addition to the highly qualified candidates, lots of candidates who aren't so qualified. And they have tools. ZipRecruiter has tools that allow you to filter out what you get back as a response to your job posting. So, for example, if you have specific qualifications that you really are going to insist on, you can simply enter those qualifications in, and anybody who doesn't meet those qualifications will be set aside, and the people who do meet those qualifications will be handed to you on a silver platter. And that way you can spend your quality time on the people who are genuinely qualified for your job position. It's really fast to post, and it's really fast and easy to deal with what you get as a response to your job post. We have a user testimonial from Scott, who's a happy ZipRecruiter client, and he said, the recruiting process used to be so painful. Before, I'd post to several places, get 1 million resumes, but only a few responses from qualified candidates. It was torture. But with ZipRecruiter, we post once and get qualified candidates in one easy-to-review place. We've hired some of our best employees using ZipRecruiter. You can try ZipRecruiter today for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. And we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. We've got a big number for you, $529. That's how many dollars the average Apple Watch costs, according to the research firm Risley. Kevin Tofel, that is a high number.
I would say it's about what I expected based on what little data that we've had from third-party sources. I can't see Apple selling tons of $10,000 Apple Watches, and even the stainless steel ones that started at $599 and went up to $600, $700, $800. For a first-generation product, that's a bit much to spend when the same internal bits are the same in every single watch. So I know I opted for the $349 version, and I think a lot of people did opt for that sport version.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. I certainly did. But again, the expensive version of this watch is so expensive that, if you have twice as many of those, it's going to skew the average in it to a huge extent because it's just so expensive. The Apple Watch, I like to remind people, is both the least expensive and the most expensive product that Apple has ever offered. Well, in news you can lose, NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden joined Twitter yesterday. He's using the Twitter name Snowden, and the account is already verified. As of this morning, the Snowden account had about 1 million followers, but Snowden himself is following only one Twitter account, NSA Gov.
I love it.
I love it too. Very amazing. He obviously worked with Twitter to set this up. They verified him instantly, and he got the coveted Snowden handle. So I'm sure somebody took that a long time ago, and Twitter probably took it back and held it for him. Just a guess. Our TNT fan of the day is Freedom Tech LLC in Jersey City, New Jersey, who posted this picture on Instagram. Shows how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup and post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so we can find it. Kevin Tofel, what are you working on these days? Are you reviewing any of the googly products that were announced yesterday?
Yes, so I do have one of the googly products on the way. I have the 5X on the way, and one of my colleagues is going to review the 6P. So we'll see how that works out. To be honest, it goes back to our very first conversation today. I'm going to spend the next week actually using my iPad as my primary writing machine. I know some writers do that. I typically do not. But I want to see if I can do that, and that would maybe sway me to get an iPad Pro, which has the larger screen and more room to work with. So that's what's on my plate for the next 7 days.
And of course, I think it was Gruber who basically said that he's expecting the iPad Pro to be, from a processing point of view, faster than any laptop that Apple sells. And I personally can vouch for the benefits of writing with an iPad. I've been doing it on and off since 2010. It's a joy to do, simply because on the one hand, it's a very appealing, you know, the single tasking is actually, now they have this sort of two-task multitasking, but the single tasking aspect of it is really great for writing. You don't have all these feeds going on and distractions. It's a little slower, of course, if you're going to go and check for information, and you have to go over to email and send a query, and you have to go over to the web and hunt down some information and so on. It's a little slower in that regard, but psychologically it's good because it sort of narrows your focus. And it reminds me a little bit of the original Mac, which just had that tiny little screen and the big, heavy, long travel keyboard. And I find it very pleasurable to write with an iPad, but we'll see what you think and see if your experience differs. So, all right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for calling today, and I look forward to your experiment with the iPad, and we'll see you next week.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye. Let us know what's on your mind. Send email to tnt@twit.tv or call 260-TNT-SHOW. That's 260-868-7469. You can subscribe to Tech News Today on your podcast app, or you can choose another way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. You can also watch us live every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1700 UTC at twit.tv/live. You can follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV, and you can follow me at elgan.com. Don't miss our other news show, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific every single weeknight. And that is the Tech News Today. The show is produced by Jason Cleanthus and edited by Anthony Nielsen. My name's Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.